Did you notice something different about our little witch here? She is not fused down to the art quilt top. She isn't even stitched down. In this tutorial, I'll be glad to share with you how I created her art. So join me for this tutorial and learn how we've done this dimensional little quilt. Before creating the witch with the Inktense products, I want to give you the information on the quilt top, since I'm not going to be going into detail on how I put that together. I chose a purple muted fabric that gives the illusion of a stormy night sky. The houses are fused down, and I glued white windows into each of the houses. The tree is also fused down. I cut out a bright yellow moon to use as a high contrast to the colorful witch. I toned down the moon with Inktense colors brown and white, plus a little bit of textile medium. Then I added a soft white glow around the moon to anchor it to the quilt top. Our witch has been drawn onto a piece of white cotton. I used a silver Sharpie and to outline her. I laid down, first of all, this pattern that I created. This is an original. And then traced it down. And I used a silver because when we, instead of black, it'll be easier for me to do the coloring in the color. The line will not show up so much. Then I took the white fabric and pressed it onto a piece of freezer paper. Shiny side up. Use the iron on cotton and a dry iron. And that way, once I have pressed the cotton with the design on it onto the freezer paper, I have then used painter's tape and attached that to a piece of plexiglass, and then that way I have got a surface that is going to be solid and it's not going to move around, and it gives me the opportunity to work with something that might be wet without damaging my workspace. I'm getting ready to choose the color to color the witch's cape and maybe her hat. I might change the color on that. But I'm going to start by letting you know what are some of the scrubbers and some of the shaders that I'm going to be using. All of these right here are all scrubbers. Look at the point, and you can see that they're different. They're not like your regular paint for like acrylics. This is a pretty hard one, so I'm going to tell you what they are. These are called scrubbers. This is a number 2, so you can see that finer point. This one is a 5, 2 different points. This one is a 6, I think. No, that's a 4. So let's see, how does that work? The larger the number, the larger the brush. And then this one, I love it when they make it like this. Looks like it's a 3. And I think this is a 2. Lordy, I cannot see it. I don't know how they expect you to see this. Yep, it's a 1. Okay, so look at the points. Let me see if I can bring this in a little more. And I have a lot of these because this is a lot of work that I do is with the Inktense pens. And I want to make sure I've got the right one I need to be able to get into these fine lines. Then added to that, these are the flats that I use. This one is called a shaper. And let me look and see. This is a number 6. And you can see it's going to be used to do the shaping. The next one that I'm going to show you is a number 4. I hope you can see that one. And then this tiny, tiny little one, which is a gem, is called a 1/16. Where is it? There it is. But look at how tiny this is. So when I go to do some of this detail work, say in here, this is exactly what I need. See, I can turn it to the point, and then I can pull the color out and down, out and down. And the same thing when I get into touchy little places like this. You want something that's got a point to it like this, and you can control it much better. And this is a stiff brush. This is not a hard one. All right, so that's got to do with the brushes. Now, if you've watched me with one of my other videos, I'm really kind of a stickler about taking your Inktense pens and pencils and coating them. So I'm trying to find the right purple to go with this with our little witch. And here's the purples that are in the bars, the ones that look like this. And if I got them all numbered, it makes it a lot easier for me. And then I have, because I use them so often, I split them in half so that I don't have to waste anything. And I tested down here what I thought I wanted for her in the purples. And I have 760, 740, 820 turned out to be a blue, don't want that one. And here it is again, I thought I'll try it, and I really like number 720. So I X that. That is the number I'm going to use to start with the cape. What we're going to do is we're going to lay color down, and then we're going to follow some of the shading later. Once you lay down the color, then you've got to add some highlights and some lowlights. And low lights, and that's what we're going to be doing later. So for now, I'm going to use a light purple, and where'd you go? Right there. And we're going to start to fill her in. Base. Okay, I think I've got it all down pat. I'm going to take my color, and I'm using the block for now, and I'm going to start to just color in lightly to see where we go. Now remember, what I'm doing, I'm going to bring this forward so you can see it. What we're doing right now is we're going to be coloring everything in, and then we're going to be doing some shading in a darker color and maybe some highlights with a lighter color. So I'm just filling in is what the whole idea here is. It doesn't have to be exact, but it should be filling it in. And I'm going lightly because I don't know how much I'm going to need of this color. I'm going to do the hands and the face in green. So I want to stay out of that area. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to complete. I think what I'm going to do is use some yarn for her hair. So I'm going to let this kind of flow up into where the purple will flow up into where her hair will be. I like using a texture for the hair. And then we'll bring this out. Again, I'll cover with color. I'll cover the outline, but I'm not worried about that because I know that I will be able to color that all in. I'm not worried about it showing. Right now, all I'm trying to do is get some nice color on her cape. I don't know. I'm going to decide if I want to have her cape be the same color as her hat or not. I was planning on using a lot of color on this gal. So I'm going to speed this up, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Filling it in with color first, very lightly. And then I may come back in with my pencils, which have the finer point, and see where I go from there. I always start light. The broom, by the way, is going to go right there. Let me show you what that's going to be. Her hands are going to be holding a broom, like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep working on this. Next thing is I'm going to use my paintbrush, and a little bit of magic of what do I call it? How do you want to call it? Texture magic, and that's not what it's. Texture medium. That's what it is. Sorry, guys. I have that other product too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to work on this. I'm using the textile medium with the Inktense inks to blend and smooth out all the colors. A small amount of the medium and a cup of water to rinse out the brushes is also at the ready to begin blending with the Witch's Cape colors. So I've started to use the carrier for the Inktense inks, and that's the textile medium. And I'm using a very light touch with my paintbrush. I'm not trying to scrub it in yet. I don't need to do that. I'm right now just laying the color down is what we would say this is. Getting the base color down so that whatever I'm going to do next with either highlights or accents or whatever is next, this will be the base color that we have. And because I'm going to be cutting her out of this white fabric, I'm not too worried about going outside the lines. Not that I want to, but it doesn't really matter that much because I'll be using scissors right along that line and cutting that out. I do like this color. It's really pretty. And having that gray line really makes it much easier for me to see the outline. And if I need to, I can come in with, I always, well, I shouldn't say always, but I like to let the first layer of Inktense inks dry first to kind of see what's the color I've got. Let it kind of set. You don't have to set it with an iron until you get to the very end when you're completely done with this and you're ready to go on to putting it on your quilt top. I just thought something. I wonder what color I should make her pants. Well, I guess we could go with orange. We're going to have purple here, and we're going to have green on her face and on her hands. So we could do that. This is the back end of the cape that flies. And again, remember what I said, this is going to be cut out, so I don't have to be following the line exact, although this brush would let me do that. This is one of the flat brushes that I've been talking about that I use. And because this is a rather small object to be painting with, I want to use a brush that is the right size for the project. This is so easy to do. This flows on so nicely. And then I'm going to sharpen this up a little bit. This is blurry, and that's okay because, again, there's so much going on in this little quilt when we're done with it that any place, if it's not exact, it'll be just fine. It'll still look just fine. All right, I'm going to let this part dry. I think what I'm going to do is pull this color up here a little bit, because this is where her hair is. And I'm going to decide, I think what I'm going to do is probably put an orange base here for her hair in there, but then actually use yarn to give some dimension to the quilt top. Okay, let's let this dry and see what the color looks like. And if I have to add more color to it, I will. Otherwise, I'll start working with doing some of the shadows and the highlights. Since I haven't made up my mind yet about what I want to do with the hat, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in the hair here and here. And again, here's my chart that I have for the bricks. And I like this color, which is a 300, or maybe even adding a little bit of number 250 to it. But let's lay down number 300 and see what we come up with. And this will be for her hair. And again, remember what I said about how I'm going to be using some yarn in there. And also, I don't have to be exact here because she's going to be cut out and then laid down on the quilt top. I like this color. Not very often that I'll use a lot of loud colors like this, but I like that. So far, so good. And I want you again to see how I didn't have to come exactly right up into the corner. That'll take care of itself when we start to blend the color in. So when I lay this down, and then when I go ahead and I find some interesting, there's this, I think it's called eyelash yarn, is what I use a lot of times. They don't make it too much anymore. You have to kind of order it online. That is so cool. I like those colors together. But to give it some dimension, I'm going to add some of that yarn right in here. I'm not being exact because I'll be able to cut this out as it feathers out, because she's going to be cut away from here, which is another technique I'll show you on how that works. Well, so far so good. I like that. Let's go ahead and fill that in. Yep, beautiful color. Orange is orange, isn't it? I don't know very many times. I guess when we make colors, when we're creating colors, flowers, we do use orange a lot. But boy, that is a rich, rich orange. That's really pretty. I know during the holiday time with pumpkins is when it's really evident that we're going to use this color. I'm not going to blend it down into the purple quite yet. I want to get this as clean as I can right now and not mix the two paints together. I'm continuing to use the textile medium as my carrier. A lot of people like to use aloe vera. That's fine, whatever your personal preference is. You can use water too, especially if you're using like a muslin, something that's got a tighter weave to the cotton. than a cotton does. But I really like using the textile medium because it gives me the control that I want. All right, let's bring this down a little bit. Let's bring this down a little bit. Wow, she is orange. Okay, I don't think I'm going to do anything more to that because we'll have some yarn going in there and it's going to look really good. So now I'm going to look at doing the face and her hands. And I'm going to move over to the pencils because it's easier to work with the fine line of the pencil when I've got such a small, tight area as these three areas. I have a 24-piece set of the pencils, and I'm looking for a green. And I'm looking for a gaudy kind of a green. So I think I'm going to try this one, which is number 1400. The P is for pencil. But this is the chart of all the colors that I have in the 24 set. So let's try the 14 and see what we come up with. I couldn't make it any smaller, but it does say 14 on there. Okay, let's see what we've got. I'm going to start by outlining it. And again, let me remind you that this is all going to be cut out, all one piece. So I don't have to be absolutely exact. But even if it was, I would still be as exact as I can be. And we go around her chin. And I'm going to leave her eyes alone. She's going to have a white eye area. Her iris is going to be black. That'll stand out. Okay, now let's fill this in. Oh, I like her green, don't you? I think this is going to turn out kind of cute. I'm pressing a little harder on this one. The pencils are a little more condensed they feel more condensed than the bricks do. The bricks are softer, so I'm scrubbing actually with the pencil a little harder than I was with the brick. So I'm going to fill this in. And again, I'm going to just let the color, fill it in, let the color dry, and make a decision from there as to, do I need more or do I just leave it alone? The hands and her wrist the very same way. It's more of a figure form than it is anything else. It can look like hands, but it doesn't have to. The intention here is it will be grabbing a dimensional stick that is her broom. You can see part of the broom there and there. And so we'll be cutting out a little area right here to wrap that area with, I'm going to probably paint it brown. And then she'll have that rod that comes down right through here. Well, you can't say she's not colorful. Okay, next step, let's see what we're going to do as we paint on this one. Now, I'm going to change to a smaller brush. I'm going to use a shader, and I showed this one to you in the beginning. Where are we? Okay. And I've also got this one. See that? I hope you can see that okay. So let's try this one. A little bit of textile medium on my paintbrush. And I'm going to paint this in. I see a lot of yellow coming through now. I think that'll do it. I'll probably tone down some of this with some shadow. But this is going to work. Okay, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. And we'll go on to whatever is next, probably her pants. I'm making just a little curve so that it kind of looks like a knuckle. But again, it doesn't have to be exact because nobody's going to really be looking for a knuckle. They're going to be looking for a hand that would be holding onto her broomstick. Okay, let her rest and see how we like that color. I decided I was going to stripe her pants. So I chose number 200 in the pencils, which is a bright, bright yellow. And I'm going to fill that in. And then we'll see if we want to go with another color to go with it or just leave it white. I decided to tone the yellow down a little bit because there's such dramatic colors going on all around her. So to combine with the yellow, I used in the pencils number 1500, which is a tan color. Let me see if I can find it here for you. actually, where did it go? It's this one here, 1800, that I used. And that kind of toned it down. Now I'm going to use a number, again, they're hard to read, 2001, 2100. And this is a black, and I'm just going to fill in her shoes. They're no big deal to the plant. They're just going to be a solid black. And make a decision down here. I think I'm going to do a little bit of the shadowing right now, going underneath her armpit here. And the same thing up here. I need a little shadow right there to differentiate between the two sleeves. I want a little bit here where her hair is. There and there. There's a fold right here where her leg is. Another fold there. Yeah, let's create a little line right there. That's where the cape comes in. That's going to be the back end of the cape. Okay, now let's see what we've got. Okay, let that dry. You'll be able to see this. Pellon two-sided fusible stabilizer. It's number 82. Pellon two-sided fusible stabilizer. And this is what it is. It's used a lot of times when you're making placemats, things like that. It's very flexible. It's a little bit firmer than if I was using just fusible. And there's fusible on both sides of this. And so what I will be doing is laying this down on a Teflon sheet. Using an iron, I'm going to stabilize our little witch here by pressing these two pieces together. Then when I get ready to cut her out, I've got the stabilization that I need to be able to get some nice firm cuts. They're still going to be fusible on here so that when I bring her right side up and situate her where I want her on the quilt top, it'll all be fused down. She's pretty much done except for us adding some yarn here. We'll add some kind of a little bauble here, like a belt buckle button or something. We're going to add her stick. And at the end of the stick, we're going to be adding some brown yarn. Otherwise, we will put a piece of Teflon coating, a sheet over her, or a piece of parchment paper, and use a cotton dry and heat set all these colors so that they don't run. I'll cut her out, and then we'll get ready to place her on the quilt top. Okay, we're getting down to the wire with our little witch here. So what I have done, so that you'll see, is I used my Sharpie fine point, and I drew little quiggles that would look as if there was some steam coming out of these two little chimneys. I did bats, always do an odd number, but I did it just freehand. I could not see trying to cut out these tiny little things. I knew I'd screw that up. So I just went ahead and just drew them right on there. Now we're ready to put our little witch down. She's not attached to anything right now because I went out and bought a rod. I bought a long piece. You can get those at your hobby store. And this is the skinniest one they had. Cut it, painted it brown. This is a trim that I found, and I'm going to wrap this around the bottom of her little broom, cut it off a little bit, and that would be really cute. Cut it off about there, and that'll be really cute as her broom that she flies on. Then I decided, I think I had told you this earlier, that I wanted to add some dimension. I really like adding dimension. It adds more interest and keeps the person looking at your design work longer. And I think some wild hair there and there is going to look just great. I will be using a hot glue gun to anchor this down first and then her on top of it. You could go ahead and hand stitch this to wrap it so that it stays there. Here's the other thing I'm going to do to finish this up. I like to use what is called, let me see if I've got this here handy. Extra wide double fold bias tape, and it's great for adding binding. Here's the double folded, so you've got some extra strength here, double folded. And then what I'm going to do is slip it right on here That's my cat. Going to slip it right on here, and then fuse it down all the way around. And then on the back, what I usually do with this is I will create a little circle, stitch these two together, or again, use fusible. And then on the back, I will put 4 of these as hangers. So I'm going to go ahead and do all this, and then we'll see, I can show you when it's all done. Well, I did decide that I do like having her pull away from the moon and not just be fused down. So underneath her, I did use 2 pieces of the same stick, only it wasn't, this is natural, not painted, and I hot glued those 2 pieces down so that now what I need to do is just line her up, wrap her fingers there, tack her down there, and she is done. If you liked this video, I hope that you will subscribe. I thoroughly enjoyed making it for you, and I hope that you got something out of it. Also, when you subscribe, you really do help our channel a lot. It helps us to continue to bring to you the very best in art quilting techniques, designs, and artists. Thank you again for watching.